Hey everybody, we're back. Give us a like and a share, and let's get right to it.
Hey, so this time we're going to be covering an article from burlingtontoday.com. So if you're aware, Burlington is a city in the Golden Horseshoe of Ontario. I used to always drive by there on the way to Toronto or back home, right? So the article reads, the headline is Housing Crisis Starts in Burlington Off the Charts This Year. They're talking about housing starts. Hey, housing starts are up. We're seeing a lot of places where, housing starts other than like Calgary, Edmonton, those kind of places where a lot of population movement is going towards.
Yeah.
Everywhere else is down. Okay, so let's get into the article. In newly released data from CMHC, that's Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation, Canadian Housing Mortgage,
Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation.
Yep. So far this year, the city of Burlington has seen the second highest total number of housing starts in the past decade, between January and the end of July. Burlington has started construction on 546 new homes, with the construction of housing of all types slowing down across Ontario. Burlington seeing significant rise in new housing starts during a time of economic headwinds, in a testament to the city's renewed focus and leadership on housing. That sounds like all good news.
That sounds pretty good so far.
Yeah, but we're not usually the channel that just kind of goes along with what's happening and what's reported, right?
Okay.
So I'll get to the good part here. The city has adopted a housing pledge of building 29,000 units by 2031. I have no idea if that's realistic or whatever, right?
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
As its share of provincial goal to build 1.5 million homes over the next decade. The city also received $21 million of Housing Accelerator Fund money from the federal government to accelerate the construction of new homes in Burlington. This is where I'm starting to be suspicious, okay? Additionally, in May of 2024, City of Burlington Council unanimously endorsed a citywide reduction in development charges, taxes on new housing, in brackets, in response to the housing crisis. What do you think about that?
Okay.
I can read the rest of the article, but this is where my rage starts to happen.
Okay. Let's.
So they're going to reduce the taxes, the cost of a permit or development cost charges, but they're being subsidized by the government in the tune of $21 million.
Already?
So the Housing Accelerator Fund, are they using that money to lower the DCC costs, the permit fees? That's what they're saying. They were able to do that.
Sure.
So to me, in my logic, hey, we're getting $21 million. We can reduce the fees. We can pass on the savings to builders and developers.
Right.
Well, if it's based on a percentage, that's a huge savings to the developer.
Sure.
Well, that gives them the safety net to move forward, even if the market is goes down a little bit. They're willing to take the risk because the risk is lower.
Yeah.
The costs are lower.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So have you ever worked for the government before?
I have not.
Okay, I was in the Navy, right? And every time it came around to the year end for the Navy, even the Navy was like, we need to make sure we spend all the money we get.
That's allocated, yeah.
Or we're not going to get as much before.
Right.
I think this is a huge trap for Burlington and any other municipality that participates in the Housing Accelerator Fund from this federal budget thing for solving this.
Okay.
That's where it's coming from, right? So what happens now is you reduce the costs, you get your $21 million from, or you get whatever X amount. Burlington's almost 200,000 population.
Okay.
Right? Saanich alone is bigger than that.
Okay.
Which is kind of weird, but in my brain, Burlington feels really big.
Yeah.
Saanich to me, it really doesn't, but it's spread out farmlands in different areas. I think it's a trap. You're going to reduce the costs. You're going to subsidize from the government. Now that subsidy will never go away, because all of a sudden,
well, if you get stuck on it,
what everybody will get stuck on.
Well, that's what I mean,
my claim,
right? The one thing that comes to mind with that is the property transfer tax in British Columbia was meant to be a temporary measure.
Yeah,
but
it's a huge cash cow,
right? And so they got stuck on it, and it became, we can't let this go. In the same way, if they get stuck on this thing of, well, we have to have this money, and in order to have this money, we have to be spending this money, then you're going to end up in a situation, like you said, with the Navy or other, I know.
I think that's pretty common. We have to spend all the funding we get. We're not going to get as much next year.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and if this funding disappears for any reason, an election, a budget, whatever, I don't know what else could happen.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, those fees will get jacked up and passed down to the home builders, the developers. And what happens at that point?
Well,
the risk is too high?
Yeah. Well, one of two things are going to happen. Either they're going to just say, oh, no, we're not doing it because the risk is too high, or they're going to put that back on the buyer.
If the market will bear it.
That's right.
So if we're on an upward trajectory on prices, then maybe that's a good time to make the switch.
Right.
But the builders are not going to benefit from it as much.
Right.
Which nobody has a bleeding heart, I'm sure, about like the rich developers and the rich builders. They're doing well, except for the times when they lose their shirts.
Right.
Right? Like it's a total balance. So that's all I wanted to bring up, like the risk of like removing that just because it's being subsidized could have long-term effects. And maybe that's good for right now.
Yeah.
But it's not a long-term solution for
to have regular subsidies. I don't
compensate.
I don't think regular subsidies is a long-term solution. You need to create a viable plan and business plan that supports itself without regular subsidies. Unless you're, I would say if you're going to give builders, and this is where it should be, give them some kind of tax incentive, make it easier for them to get approvals, and the cost will come down accordingly that way for them.
Do you mean like Gordon Campbell had HST, where we can claim all the HST, GST, and PST together and have it as a flow through? That was Gordon Campbell in BC, right?
Sure.
And then we got rid of that, and now we can't claim the PST as an expense.
Right.
Like imagine, like we already had some of these things, and they were taken away from us.
Right.
I think a lot of people didn't understand the concept of it, right? They just felt like it got rammed down our throats here in BC, and nobody was happy about it. And then the next party promises to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So we know that that's kind of how elections run. Is the party that's not in power makes a whole bunch of, we're going to do these things and we're going to change these things that the party in power has done or is doing because you don't like it, we don't like it, let us help you.
Well, you know what? Let us know what you think. Does the Housing Accelerator Fund from the federal government, do you think that's going to help solve long-term affordability or the opportunity for younger people or all ages to get into the market, get on that property ladder, and have some protection against inflation and hedge against rent increases? Will that work? I'm not very confident in that, but
tell us what you think. Give us a like and a subscribe. See ya.